What's going on, everyone? It's New. Welcome back. I got to come out with something. I guess we'll call this a part 2 of the previous video I just came out with, where I showed you the trick to get a dungeon open you would like to run, to keep spamming it, to just get to a situation where you could just teleport out and back in. It would reset the dungeon automatically. Huge quality of life for solo players, really increasing in the EXP per hour, legendaries per hour, whatever you want, farming efficiency through the roof on that. It came to my attention after some people started watching the video that apparently the same thing can be done on the other side, on the Nightmare Dungeons. You can actually use the same trick, essentially, to spam the Nightmare Dungeon over and over. I mean, there's a catch. You can't complete the Nightmare Dungeon or you ruin the process, but I mean, you can do everything except the very last task, which, you know, in some dungeons would be to kill the boss. You can not kill the boss. You lose out on the glyph leveling process, but who cares if you already got your glyphs where you want, especially if you're caring about getting, you know, better item drops, which do drop in higher level Nightmare Dungeons. If you're caring about getting more EXP efficiently, which is definitely the case in Nightmare Dungeons, the main reason people don't run Nightmare Dungeons or don't prefer them over the regular dungeons is because there's so much downtime normally in having to, you know, select which dungeon you're doing. You got to look at all the roles. You don't get to pick which dungeon you want to do every single time, right? And then you have to run to each dungeon. So it's just a huge amount of downtime normally. No more. Currently, at the time of this video, of recording this video, this works. And I gotta say, looking at everything now, I don't have very high hopes this is going to work for very long. So this is something of a honeymoon phase for any dungeon grinder blaster, especially if you're at the tail end of leveling like I am at level 98. This is huge ramifications for this. So I'm going to show you how to do it. And I did go out of my way to see what some of the other content creators were saying on it. I found out apparently there are segments of the community that already knew about this days ago. And what I noticed is that a lot of creators are giving you a specific strategy. Some of them were different. Some of them were more convoluted than others. They were kind of complex, and everybody even admitted so. It was kind of complicated to set this up. Actually, it's not that complicated. I went out of my way to figure out the least complicated way of doing it by reverse engineering the steps back to basically seeing what is the minimum number of steps you have to take to set this up. And it's really not that hard. It's really no harder than setting up the reverse. So it's basically the same process. So that's really good news. If you're familiar with how to set up the infinite dungeon spam, basically it's the same thing. So let's get to it. I'm just going to open a Champion's Demise. So we're going to pretend that this is like, you know, could have magic find on there. I'll keep running that repeatedly. Let's just pretend this is like the perfect dungeon and I want to run it forever, right? First thing I'm going to do, just like I would have done in the other case, is I'm going to initiate it. And I'm going to run there. Okay, we're going to go to Girandi. Now I'm going to kind of show you the process of doing this, but the TLDR, in case you don't want to spend much time in this video, is we're selecting a Nightmare Dungeon, we're going there, we step in, we don't even have to kill a monster, by the way, and you don't have to clear half the dungeon anyway, you just step in, then you port back out to do whatever regular dungeon you could go to. In this case, Ruins of Eridu is probably the most convenient one to do. And then you have to clear half of that dungeon. That's the trick. That's the secret sauce to the strategy. You have to initiate the second half of a regular dungeon. Then you get to choose whether you want to repeat the regular dungeon or initiate the repeating process for the Nightmare Dungeon. Now, for the last video, I said, well, we'll just keep porting back in and out of the regular dungeon, and that was it. But in this case, we're going to go, instead, we're going to port out of the regular dungeon, Ruins of Eridu in this case, and then we're going to go back into Champion's Demise here. So again, the first step is entering the dungeon. Initiate the dungeon, enter the dungeon. Now we're just going to go to Ruins of Eridu, and I will need to clear half of this dungeon, or, you know, do the first. Every dungeon basically has 2 parts. You need to complete the first part, and I think that's it. There might be a better dungeon to do this with than Ruins of Eridu, but it is just one I'm very familiar with, and it is very fast. And it's a short distance over here. So really not that complicated to set this up, honestly, and that's kind of my gift to you. That's the one difference between what I say. I think I'm trying to bring this to you guys in a way that's more valuable than maybe the ways you saw before. understanding that a lot of people have already talked about this before. I think it's important to try and add some value where you can. And that's what I'm doing here. So I am going to showcase it in real time. It doesn't take very long at all. Okay, just gotta basically kill all the monsters in here. Most of them, and then it'll spawn the rest, I guess. Yes, this dungeon got nerfed. It's not nearly as good as it was before. Not really concerned about that for the sake of this test. And setting up, you know, the real dungeon I want to run. Okay, we're almost there. Just round one more corner. Ah, I didn't get down to the number 10 number. Okay, here it is. This will conclude it right here. Okay, it's done. I don't even need to TP. I can just, sorry, go back out this way. Go back to Girondai, which is right here. And now it's set up. This is the point where you can choose. So if I wanted to continue doing Ruins of Eridu or whatever, spamming whatever regular dungeon, I would just teleport it back out and then back in right now, right? But in this case, I want to spam the Nightmare Dungeon. So I'm leaving that place for good. I don't know the exact programming on this. Probably a bug. I have to assume it's a bug because this has all kinds of incredible ramifications on cheesing the Nightmare Dungeon, such as being able to get around the fail-safe. You can no longer fail a Nightmare Dungeon if you can reset it on the go, because we have, you know, 4 deaths warranted to us anyway. We can actually reset the death counter. We can run a Magic Find dungeon over and over as much as we want. And of course, just the general quality of life of not having to run to and from a dungeon and having to keep running different dungeons and everything anyway. Now, the dungeon is actually reset right now. We don't really know that because I didn't go in and do anything in the last one, but I'll prove it to you here. I'm going to go in and, you know, just go forward. And you know how it says revives 4 remaining? I'm going to actually show you just how ridiculous this is. And this is the reason why this is not intended. I'm going to die on purpose in here. Okay? We die on purpose. Alright. Oh, I don't like that I only have 3 revives remaining. I want to have all 4 remaining, you know. Because that's a thing. It's going to reset the dungeon, and I'm going to have 4 revives remaining. There's the load screen. So like I said, a lot of ramifications. You can magic find with the magic find affix, like right here. You could do this indefinitely with the same dungeon. You no longer have to run in and out of the dungeons. 4 revives remaining. You can no longer fail a dungeon through too many deaths. Definitely not as intended. There's no way. As much as I love the quality of life this gives, definitely think of it as a honeymoon phase. This could be gone tomorrow. It could be gone 10 minutes after I post this video. I don't know, but here it is. That's the information for you. Hope you got a lot out of this. We'll see you in the next one. I think I will take this opportunity to maybe test some magic find, or actually I'm going to be testing the remainder of the leveling. Be interested to see how much XP per hour I can get dungeon spamming. We'll see next time.